bright and early. Good morning. Welcome to The Breakfast Show, The Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Kikulu here in Lagos, Nigeria.
Welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey. As long as day 8, right? Day 8. I try to count the days because the guy said they're going to be on the road for 10 days. So I try to remind myself, what day is this and what is going on in terms of the momentum of the nationwide protest. But good morning and welcome to the program.
It's also 0808. So the days are aligning, right? It's the 8th of August, 2024. A beautiful Thursday morning. What is your day shaping up like? Well, not to worry. We're here to ensure that you start your day on the right note. And I mean, we'll not start without talking about our girls in the Olympics, the D Tigress. If you saw that match yesterday against the USA, then you'll know that those girls really need to hold their heads up high. They didn't go down without a fight. I mean, the first quarter, that's the last quarter, they actually outscored the USA. For context, this is a USA #1 team. The USA, where you have the NBA, the WNBA, they call themselves the champions of the world, right? So to see our girls really pulling their weight is something beautiful to see. Yes, we did not win the match. We had like plus 10 points difference. But the truth is we have to commend our girls. Now, I know that there are lots of lessons to learn, which we'll get to on the show today. But for the girls, Tobia Mouchon, the D Tigress, the ones in the long jump, Esa Brume, and the rest. Well, there was a Nigerian young man as well who ran in the 400 meters. He didn't win as well, but big ups to you guys. The fact that you went out there in spite of all of the challenges you faced and you didn't make a podium finish, but at least you participated and you finished. We say kudos to you guys.
Well, we're thinking that when we come today, we will be celebrating the Tigress. But, well, it's what it is. As Kayode said, this is commendable. They made history as far as this is concerned. Lots of history also being made at the Olympics. So they've made history. They've done the best they can for the country. And so we thank them for their service. We now have to look at it in the direction of other athletes who are the Olympics, the people that are doing athletics and all of that, to see how far they can get us as far as this is concerned. So we're still in the dream phase of trying to get one medal back into the country. Let's hope. Because when you talk about the numerical strength in terms of participation, it's like we're running in deficit. So there are countries like China and the USA that will come with as much as 400 people, 300 and something athletes, but we come less than 100. So in terms of population mass, population of the athletes, to be able to be all over the place in good number, we're already at disadvantage. So it's a lot of work for all of us as a country to begin to look in the direction of maybe competitive advantage and not just throw our strength everywhere. So we must commend the Tigress for one simple reason. Nigeria is not necessarily in the real term a basketball nation nominally. We're a football nation. So when we see some of these outlier sports within our climb make it as far as they did, we must commend them. But there are sports that we should not be outliers. Sports like swimming.
Wow.
Football, we didn't do well at all. Football,
I'm curious about the swimming part, Jeff.
Yeah, the swimming, because we have rivers all over the place. Like we're surrounded by a body of water. So we should be scouting Bielsa, rivers, Cross River, Lagos.
People just go there to have a good time. And it's just a point to be made, really. We have these things. Now, how we use them is left to us. You can see them as just something for fishing, or you can maximize them. Yes, it is not too safe to start learning from there, but we can use what we have. And something struck me when Coach Wakama was speaking to the girls at some point during the game.
Wakama.
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 Wakama. Yes. So during the game, right, tempers were flaring, particularly with the Nigerian girls, because they were frustrated. They were playing quite well, but just little mistakes here and there, lots of turnovers. They were missing their three-pointers. And the coach rallied them round and said, we shouldn't fight each other. Let us fight them. Just talking about the USA team. They are the opposition. We are not the opposition. And that hit me. And I think it's something we can take on board as a nation as well. We shouldn't fight each other. What we should be fighting is bad governance, hunger, the economic situation, insecurity, not fighting ourselves. So Coach Wakama Jeffrey, I got that right.
Whatever you say is fine.
Thank you for those words, and I hope that Nigerians can take it on board.
At the end of the day, let's do the best we can. Support these girls, support these guys, and all of the people that went out to these Olympics. Because for those of us on the program, what we try to do, given what is going on in the country, is to look at bright spots. We try to look at the bright spots. So every morning we try to check out what happened. What happened at the Olympics?
Give you that dose of encouragement.
Did we get anything? So we're still hopeful. We haven't given up. We'll keep hope alive and ensure that even if it's a bronze medal and all of that, we should be able to come back with something at the end of the day. For me, we've gone past the level of participation. These guys from the US, from China, from Germany, and from the global north, they are there to get as many medals as possible. So
Indeed.
we should not be contented with participation. That era is gone. Yeah. This time, we have to win.
Absolutely. So all eyes on Toby Amushon, Ese Brume, and the rest. We wish you the very best. But what do we have for you on the show this morning? Let's unpack now, shall we? With young Nigerians championing the End Bad Governance protests, both online and offline, we ask, what plans does government have for the plus 100 million Nigerian youth? So we're talking employment, human capital development. Simply put, what is a Tinubu government's Nigerian dream for the Nigerian youth?
That will not be all we'll be talking about on the program. We also follow the money from the federal government to the states, and yes, with that autonomy, to the local government. How much are they receiving? What are they using it for? And this is more important. Can you feel these spendings or even the lack of it? We will explore that conversation. So a little shift from the federal government for a moment. Let's find out at the grassroots level who is spending our money and what they are spending it for.
We'll cascade it all the way. Federal government is also on the table, absolutely. But that's not all. 13 days into the Olympics, yes. But Nigeria's search for a medal, just a single medal, continues. There have been bright sparks from the D Tigers to Favour Ofili. Samuel Ogazi was in the 400 meters final, but none made podium finish. But there's still hope.
That's not all. What have you been saying across social media? Our choice of social media is X. So just reach out to us. We should say tweet at us, but now maybe X at us, if you will. Post on X. Let's have your say on the program. Our responsibility is to amplify your voice. Also, WhatsApp, your reactions and all the things you've been talking about. That's the number. No messages. Sorry, messages and videos only. No calls, I wanted to say. So just send your messages and your videos. As much as we have time, we'll accommodate it and amplify your voice. If you're at the protest ground, if you're at work, whatever it is as you hustle as Nigerians, we hustle a lot. Let's know. And what is it that is on your mind? You want to ventilate your thoughts? Bring it on. We're right here to help you do that on the program.
Absolutely. We're keeping our eyes on what's playing out at the NLC headquarters. By the way, we understand that at about 8:30 p.m. yesterday, security operatives raided the NLC headquarters in the nation's capital, Abuja, and they're said to have taken away documents. So keep our eyes on that and bring you more updates. But we have so much more for you on the show this morning. We're starting off with the very top stories that will be shaping conversations today and in the coming days. That's in a few seconds. Stay with us right here. It's a morning brief. Your top stories at this hour. We begin with a disclaimer from nation's oil company, the NNPCL, saying they are not criminals nor thieves, adding that they have nothing to do with sabotage of Nigeria's economy. The group chief executive officer of the NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, made the case before the Senate ad hoc committee investigating alleged economic sabotage in the petroleum industry in the nation's capital, Abuja.
NNPC has nothing to do with imports of products that are substandard. For me and my colleagues in the NNPC, even by conviction of faith, Mr. Chairman, we will do nothing. We believe there is eternal accountability, Mr. Chairman. Even if you don't unravel what is happening, we know that God knows. And that God will hold us accountable. And we're after no one. We are persecuting nobody. We are not criminals. We are not thieves. We are serving our country and we believe very, very strongly that we're faithful, loyal to this country. The oil and gas industry is bleeding, Mr. Chairman. We can't speak. There are things we know we don't say, and that's why I agree with the Honorable Minister that even the things we won't say, we'll say them when the right time comes.
Question is, when will that right time be? But there's more from that meeting, as the chairman of the committee, Senator Kwemi Bamidele, who presided over the session, asserts that no one will be exempted from scrutiny in the ongoing investigation.
Specifically, the Federal Executive Council approved $1.5 billion for the turnaround maintenance of the Port Harcourt refinery. Yet, this investment has not yielded significant returns. For us in the Senate, and of course now in the National Assembly, we believe it is unfair and unpatriotic to treat government business as an orphan.
For the hearing were the Ministers of Finance and the Minister of State for Petroleum Oil, who promised to tender the necessary documentation. I'll take a listen.
We're also committed to supporting Dangote refinery. We are committed to supporting the modular refineries, and we have been resolving whatever issues that are brought to our attention, from time to time. I believe that it is important that the Senate, ensure that we do a live broadcast.
We must seize this opportunity. Amongst other things, we must seize this opportunity to maximize the whole oil and gas sector value chain. And that's why we are here to discuss what it will take to get us really moving and maximizing.
And staying in that sector, the Nigeria Police Force has announced the arrest of an 8-month-old pregnant woman who's said to be the leader of an oil bunkering syndicate, along with her husband and 6 others over their alleged involvement in aiding and abetting an organized syndicate specialized in tampering with oil pipeline and stealing the product. Addressing a news conference in Abuja on the achievement of the IGP Special Task Force on Petroleum and Illegal Bunkering, the Force Public Relations Officer, Ezekio Olumuyiwa Adejobi, says, as part of the IGP's efforts to boost the anti-oil theft activities of the Nigeria Police Force, there's been tremendous support to or from the Nigerian Navy via the MPF Marine Unit and the purchase of additional 20 boats for the Marine Unit to be delivered soon. Now let's tell you what happened on day 7 of the ongoing nationwide End Bad Governance protests, which is against hardship and the economic situation in the country. In the nation's capital, Abuja, the protesters have deserted the allocated venue for the protest after encounters with security operatives. But that hasn't stopped the former country director of the Action Aid Nigeria, Mrs. Enobi, who's leading a sit-out instead of the regular demonstration at the Moshood Abiola Stadium.
We have 10 days of protest, 10 days of rage, where we say, come out and tell the government what you are feeling and express yourself. Is that the end? Of course it's not the end, it's the beginning. I think the president is lucky that these 10 days has been called for people to air out their views.
We are not using violence, it's a peaceful demonstration. So I think maybe, I hope they would actually consider the fact that we are not doing anything against the government or breaking any laws. So I believe it will move them, if they do have conscience.
For us today, as the 7th day of the protest, is a mourning day for us. We mourn not only the departed souls, we also mourn, unfortunately, the distance, the disconnection of the government from the people, which doesn't seem to be changing. But we believe that Nigerians, look, at the end of this 10-day protest, it will not be the end. It will not be the end. We are going to continue in different ways.
And another group of women have organized yet another sit-out, this time in support of the Tinubu government at a separate location in the city center, with members of the Tinubu support groups converging on the presidential campaign office of the APC.
If you check from this, in the southeast where I come from, there is nothing like protest there. Because some of us understand the policy, we're able to talk to our people and they understand. from us, the policies of Mr. President. And that is what we are trying to extend to our brothers in the northern part of the country, so that they could equally understand with us and have patience with this man. I want to tell you that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will give birth to a Nigeria of our dream.
Well, let's tell you more now. Business news. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, is blaming poor identity management for Nigeria's rise in unclaimed dividends, which has weakened investor confidence and increased fraud. Well, according to the SEC, unclaimed dividends stood at 180 billion naira in March this year, and that's despite the introduction of the e-dividend mandate management system. The SEC Director General, Mr. Emomotimi Agama, who was a guest on Channel's television, stressed the need for better investment or investor education in the country. And now to sports news. Nigeria's D Tigress suffered a 74-88 quarterfinal defeat to the U.S. women's basketball team at the 2024 Paris Olympics just last night. Nigeria, who have made physical play a trademark, looked anything but intimidated by the powerhouse Americans as they traded buckets in the opening minutes. Well, the trailblazing Nigerians, who were led by 19 points from Amukamara with 16 from Ezine Kalu, departed to a warm ovation from fans. Well, next up for the United States is Australia, who had 22 points and 13 rebounds from Alana Smith in a convincing victory over Serbia. Well, big ups to the Nigerian girls. We'll go again next time. But that's not all we have for you at this moment. Jeffrey now joins me as we get into our very first major talking point on the show amidst the protests, majorly led by Nigerian youths. There are questions as to what the Tinubu government has in store for the Nigerian youths who make up plus 100 million of Nigeria's population, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. So that's why we've been joining the program at the moment via Zoom by the Minister of Youth, Ms. Jamila Bio Ibrahim. She joins us via Zoom. Honorable Minister, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the program. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin with your characterization, as we've always said, of what has played out in the last, just before the protest as well as the protest itself. This protest is majorly led by young people. So let's get to immediate response as how you evaluated and assessed what has played out in the number of days we've seen so far.
Thank you very much. Well, my evaluation and assessment of what has played out in the last couple of days, I'd say 7 days, has been the fact that people have come out and they have expressed their concerns about the economic hardships that the reforms we're implementing is bringing upon Nigerians. And I also would like to first commend the states who have come out and demonstrated their concerns through protests peacefully, especially states in the southeast, and states like Ondo State as well in the southwest, and some other southwestern states that, and of course my home state, Kwara State, where people did not come out at all to protest. Well, it's a call for action and, of course, for government to accelerate our programs, implementation of our programs and initiatives to cushion the impacts of the reforms, like we have already been doing. And like I listened to the previous, to the reports you heard a few minutes ago, and a woman said that they hope that the government is touched. Yes, we are deeply touched, and we identify and we with the current circumstances of Nigerians, and we're working extremely hard to ensure that we improve the lives and of course the economy as well, to recover from these shocks that we have experienced in the last couple of months. But then we would also not fail to acknowledge the fact that these shocks are just an impact of long-standing or long-term and the long-term need for these reforms to actually be instituted.
You've been holding town halls with Nigerian youths. You are the minister in charge of youth development. That's a heavy burden on your shoulders. Yes, you have a Minister of State, but that's a huge one because Nigerian youths make up 100+ million of Nigeria's population. So you represent the largest demography in Nigeria. Having sat down with the Nigerian youths, having heard their demands, they want an end to bad governance. And I imagine that resonates with you as well because you're a young Nigerian, and I want to imagine you want an end to bad governance as well. But let's start with this. What is the Tinubu government's Nigerian dream for the Nigerian youth? Is there anything like that for this government?
Absolutely. Absolutely. First, I'll start with the vision, then I'll elaborate a little bit more about how I feel as a young person yearning for good governance. The vision of President Tinubu's administration for young people in just one sentence is political and economic empowerment of young people to ensure that young people are part of and the drivers of the economic development of Nigeria. And of course, we are also involved in decision-making processes from the policies of this administration, especially being implemented by the Ministry of Youth Development. We can say that the policies are a commitment and, of course, an echo of Mr. President's vision for young people. He has approved 30% institutionalization of 30% youth inclusion in government across all tiers of government. And we're working very hard to ensure that we back this up with an act of parliament to ensure sustainability, even after Mr. President's tenure. So this, we pray, will serve as a legacy of Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu when it comes to youth inclusion in governments. And then the economic inclusion of young people as well. We're also aware that there are several initiatives from all of government, but then from the youth development from the Youth Development Ministry, we also have some flagship programs that we have been implementing in the past, and that we have also reviewed and restructured, and we will also be implementing and accelerating action in implementation.
Honourable Minister, so let's walk around priorities. You said the government prioritizes empowerment and all of that. What's the size of your budget in 2024 so that we're on the same trajectory? What's the allocation that is coming to the ministry in 2024 budget?
Well, the allocation in the 2024 budget is 7.2 billion, with about 20% for implementation of capital
I'm talking about the total budget size of your ministry as a whole.
The total is 7.2 billion.
Naira. Wow. Because I wanted to check that out, because what I'm seeing in the 2024 budget says about 215 billion. That's what I saw in the gazetted budget of the federal government. So let's even stay with the number you quoted. Maybe you have to check in on all of that. Let's even stay with the number you quoted. If 7 billion is earmarked for entire ministry, does that look like a priority of ministry, or this sounds like tokenism to you?
Well, I do not think it is tokenism, because as part of efforts of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the entire administration to ensure that youth development is a priority. And because if we go back in time, we would also recall that the ministers of youth development came on board about 3-4 months after the cabinet was actually was sworn in rather. So we would also understand that we were already in the process of, the ministries were already in the process of budget preparation. So we were not able to embark on advocacy to the stakeholders, the critical stakeholders in the budgeting during the budgeting process. But because in order to make up for this, we're aware that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved as well 110 billion naira for the expanded and restructured Youth Investment Fund to ensure that we prioritize in order to make up for the deficit in the budget. So, and there are other funds and forms of support for youth development beyond the Youth Investment Fund, which we will also be communicating with the general public as well in the coming days. But it is not, the Youth Development Ministry is not tokenism. It's not a gesture of tokenism. It is an expression of commitment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to empower young people economically and politically.
Sorry, the reason I use the word tokenism, if you say the government is interested in youth development, and whether it's 7 billion or 215 billion, as I saw in the Gazetted, it doesn't look like a major priority. And even if we break it down, you see that personnel cost alone takes about 71%, and capital expenditure will take maybe about less than 5 or 7% at the end of the day, which is why I wanted you to respond to that, because how much can you really do? And you even have 2 ministers in the first place. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. Well, we have a lot of hope and commitment from the stakeholders, especially the National Assembly and the Budget and the Economic Planning Ministry, to ensure that the 2025 budget is a reflection of our priorities being youth development, putting young people at the fore of national development, and ensuring that we leverage their innovation, creativity towards economic transformation that this country dearly deserves.
All right. We'll need to, of course, do a verification, perhaps when you're done, of those figures, because what we're seeing being quoted by the budget office is 200+ billion naira for the Ministry of Youth Development.
215 billion.
Exactly. So, but let's speak to placating Nigerian youths. The president gave a speech on Sunday, and for a lot of people, they thought, it didn't have the bite. It didn't hit us as we wanted it to hit us, basically from the demands that the protesters have put on board, the economic situation, security as well, having a future, government's profligacy, which has been a major issue for Nigerians, because you see how, the government and people in government, how they carry on as though Nigeria is a very rich nation. So for you, you've been holding those town halls and you've been speaking with Nigerian youths. Is there really anything to show? Because you've talked about things like the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund and some other things. But how much can Nigerians hold on to right now and say, I am feeling this? It's good to hear those things on paper. It's another thing to see them in reality. So is this something you're cascading and you're really, really passing on to Nigerian youths beyond we have plans?
Thank you very much. Certainly, it's something that we're actually working the talk about. The Youth Investment Fund is about, it's been about 12 days since we launched the restructured Youth Investment Fund. So, well, we have thus far up to this morning, because we're tracking it daily, and I personally ensure that I track it as well daily, just to ensure that I'm accountable, just like you've asked me now. Off the top of my head, I should be able to tell you, as of today, we have about 291,000 applicants for the Youth Investment Fund. And something that is really unique, something that is really unique and exciting basically about it is that we had it gives us a lot of hope actually that we had been very proactive and predictive of how these applications would turn out. We predicted, because in the process of the restructure of the Youth Investment Fund, we predicted that 70% of this fund will be set aside for youth enterprise clusters, which was also approved by the Federal Executive Council to establish the presidential initiative on youth enterprise clusters. And I'm very excited to tell you this morning that 200,000 out of the 291,000 applicants actually have expressed interest in engaging in or being part of an enterprise cluster. It's really exciting because,
Minister,
and true to our prediction.
Pardon me to butt in. I just want us to have this back and forth well, so we're able to get the point out for Nigerians. So quickly, the president removed subsidy over a year ago. He announced it, or at least he announced the removal, whether or not it was a previous administration or not, but he put a final stamp to the removal of subsidy. So Nigerians, in some sense, had been having a headache since then. So what we're seeing now is the government dispensing medication over a year after Nigerians started having the headache. So they say medicine after death. Why are we just having this program when we could well have had it over a year ago when Nigerians really needed it, the right time? And that speaks to planning of this government. On the one hand, I'm sure those funds have not been disbursed yet. People are still expressing interest. So why is the government moving slow? Why do we have that slow movement from government?
Well, it is important that we state that we run a government that has a bureaucracy in place. In addition to having a bureaucracy, we must also, as political people and appointees of government, ensure that we follow due process when we're implementing and in the process of planning, because we come with our policies and plans, but we need to also ensure that as leaders, we get the buy-in of the team that will work with us to implement. So this, I can tell you for sure, being at the driver's seat now, I can tell you for free that we all want to make a difference. We want to make an impact, but we also will advocate for our bureaucracies to work very closely with us to ensure that we make great impact to Nigerians, to also support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. Well, I also would like to say that we do understand that planning programs, initiatives, and plans. Basically, we need to take we require a period of time to plan, and in order to execute a plan effectively, we need to do a lot of we need some time to plan. And once you have the right plan, implementation usually comes seamless. So we didn't want to dive in head first. We took our time to look at, for us at the Ministry of Youth Development, on arrival, we looked at all the programs and initiatives of the government in youth development. And then we did a review of these programs to see how impactful they are, which ones we should sustain and which ones we should improve or restructure. So we've done that, and it was a tedious process and required a lot of time to plan in order to get to this point. So for us, rolling out this program, I'd say it's pretty much a coincidence for us, because we've had plans to go out there and to open the portal for the Youth Investment Fund for people to begin to register. Federal Executive Council had already approved the restructuring of the fund and expansion in late March of 2024. So it's I would say that in order to, being a medical doctor as well, I would say that it's not necessarily medicine after death, because we must not, if we rushed into implementation, right, saying that, we had some funds that was running, let's just continue to implement it, and we realized that there's no impact. First, we must first do a diagnosis before we apply the medication. So I wouldn't say it's medicine after death. I would say that we had to do a proper analysis before implementation in order to ensure sustainability of our initiatives.
All right, Minister, in terms of the diagnosis and the time for medication, since you're a doctor, the jury is still out on that, whether that diagnosis was properly done and whether the medication is even working in the first place. So the question I want to ask as young people is it may not necessarily be, are you trying to reduce the number of young people in government? But since we're talking about cutting cost of governance, given the fact that that's one of what the young people are looking for and asking for, we believe that this cabinet is bloated to an extent, because the biggest in size in the history of Nigeria, 48, and people are saying cut down. And let's come to your ministry, for instance. When I look at the budgetary allocation, whether it's 200 and something billion, it's a small amount, and you're overseeing, correct me if I'm wrong, just a few agencies, maybe 3 or 4, and then you have 2 ministers in the Ministry of Youth. Isn't that a place we should start from in terms of cutting cost of governance by maybe taking one of you to yet another ministry? Why do we have 2 ministers of youth development when we have this size of budget and this number of ministries? So help us out. Why do we have 2 ministers?
Well, I believe we will leave that to Mr. President to decide, because I don't think that I'm in the best position to respond to this.
All right, I'll leave it at that. So as we're going to wind down, let's talk about, because maybe that's a memo we are telling you to forward to the president to say, Mr. President, this ministry has small money and so few agencies to oversee. Why don't you cut down the number of ministers?
That will be the day, Jeffrey. That will be the day. That kind of memo comes from a minister.
That will be a good day. But moving on now, both of you as leaders in that ministry, which Kayode had mentioned that you oversee over 100 million people, what will be, when you finish your term, you want to look back at and say, this is what I will use as a yardstick to say I was successful?
Well, I would say if by the end of our tenure we're able to cut the unemployment rates by at least 20%, that's moving us from 53 million young Nigerians unemployed to at least we cut that figure to being at 20% down. I believe I would have succeeded, and that's why we're working very hard to ensure that we are that platform for coordination to plug in all partners and ministries, departments and agencies and the private sector to ensure we create opportunities, as many opportunities as possible for young people to be part of to build enterprises and to be part of the workforce. And I know that this is not a task that we can do alone. We need all stakeholders on board to work with us to serve the Nigerian people better, especially the young people. The youth enterprise clusters is, I think I would, so I would have to, it requires a whole session basically on your show or on another segment on channels to dissect and properly discuss what this youth enterprise clusters would really do. Because I can tell you, certainly as of, we have, especially in the North, the responses for young people who actually want to be part of the enterprise clusters is amazing and overwhelming. So we have states like Katsina State, because we've found out that 69% of people who have expressed interest in the Youth Investment Fund, who have applied in the Youth Investment Fund, want to be part of enterprise clusters. And true to our predictions, the cotton value chain, because we had identified in the process of our diagnosis, we realized that Katsina has a competitive advantage for cotton, right? So we identified states like Katsina and Niger, and honestly, we've gotten the largest applications and expressions for cluster participation from these two states. And that's why I'm really excited, because we have been proactive and our predictions were right. And that means that we're on the right track in our implementation. So it was worth it why we took this long in our planning process. We got about 11% of the applications were of people, of all the cluster applications out of 70%, with 11.5% are from Katsina State and 9% are from Niger State, with Kaduna being the third of 6.7%. And they've expressed interest in clustering to be part of the crop production cluster. So I would also, a total, I would like to put figures to this as beyond just percentages. Okay. For Katsina, we have 29,000 young people, right? And great, the governor has done an amazing, we've been engaging with the governor. He has committed to give us 25,000 hectares to develop, hectares of land to develop the cotton value chain in Katsina State. And we want to work with, where we look forward to clustering of these 29,000 young people who have registered on the NUF platform. Right. And in Niger State, I would say that we also have a total of, in Niger, we have 20,000 young people who want to be part of clusters, and Kaduna has about 16,000. So we have clusters across board. I'll just name a few clusters that we hope to work on, like in Lagos State, where we got, and you see now, what we're doing is when it's more or less like a bottom-up approach. because we've allowed these applications to come in, even though we have our plan, but then with an opportunity or a leverage to be able to tweak this plan to align with the needs of young people. So, but the needs now have come in and they're greatly aligned with what we had initially planned. So we were planning to work in the creative sector in Lagos State, for instance, and for the fashion and beauty sector cluster, we have interest of about 7,000 people in Lagos State just in 10 days.
Okay.
And
so this is what we'll do, Honorable Minister.
Yes.
We'll have a date where we'll do a proper sit-down in the coming days.
I look forward to
We'll
that.
have a sit-down and walk through this, because the challenge has always been these numbers are thrown around. Say 20 million people have benefited from this. And you go to the streets, you ask around, they say, well, it didn't get to our side. So the question has always been, first, can we do a forensic audit of this list and then match it to what is real or not on ground? But these are people showing interest. It'll be important to see what this will mean in terms of job creation.
It's exciting that in 2 weeks' time maximum. That's why we've been asking for Nigerians to please give us some time. The first batch of beneficiaries of the restructured NUs will begin to receive their funds and start their enterprises in the next couple of weeks.
In the next 2 weeks, you say? How many weeks is
certainly,
that?
Certainly, yes.
The thing, Minister, is that you doctors say, okay, so 2 weeks, she said. You doctors will say, if symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor.
Consult your doctor.
These symptoms are, and that's what we keep saying, these symptoms have persisted not for days, not for weeks, for over a year. The moment subsidy was removed officially, Nigerians started feeling the bite. So we've been consulting the doctor, that is the government in this case, but Nigerians are like, so what else do we do? That's why they're protesting on the streets. So let me come to this point, because what we saw during the protest was something really dangerous, particularly in northern Nigeria. We saw a lot of young people took to the streets, and people were wondering, where did they come from? Obviously, these young Nigerians are not engaged, and they can be easy tools for insecurity, banditry, and the rest. So 100+ million youths, the numbers you're giving, 10,000 here and there, don't even add up to 1 million. So please tell us, what is the bigger picture? So maybe that can placate the youths on the streets.
The bigger picture is that in the first 1 year, where our target is to empower directly 500,000 young people. Well, now, that was when we started the planning. So in 6 months' time, we will be empowering 500,000 young people. And already we have 300,000 directly. And then as a multiplier effect, we know that we will be creating indirect jobs as well. So we will be creating over 2 million indirect jobs in the first 6 months. And I would like to assure you of that. As long as we have the commitment of all the stakeholders, we will be sure to accelerate action in all our initiatives and programs. And well, now is the time to actually engage even more, because as a young person, I've always been a bit critical of our past leaders, and of course disappointed, because we go to the polls, we vote for leaders, but at the end of the day, they make commitments because they're under pressure by the people to speak. As politicians, they make commitments and they're not able to fulfill. So I thought that now, being at the driver's seat, it was time to do things differently, to ensure that I do not create a demand that I do not have, that we as a government do not create a demand that we don't have a supply for. And that's why it took us a while before we started communicating our plans and initiatives, because we had done an analysis and we have a plan, an implementation plan that is robust. And of course, with the monitoring, evaluation, and feedback as well. This is also what you spoke about, saying that the numbers come in large magnitude, and then we do not see the impact on the ground. But I can assure you that we're committed to doing things differently. The entire administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is committed to doing things differently. And that's why it has taken us this long to ensure that we have the right plans in place, and of course to learn from the mistakes of the past.
Minister, at the end of the day, people want to be alive to enjoy some of these plans, which is why a lot of people are almost in a hurry to say, look, We're already dying. Keep us alive first before you begin to talk about all of this plan. Because as we've always maintained, efforts are not in short supply, but result is how people will assess whether you did well in your leadership or not. I'm talking president, I'm talking ministers, I'm talking governors. Now, one of the best ways to get things done that we've observed, which now the conversation is one of the conversations we want to have. It appears that at the subnational level, there are weak links. There are weak links. So let's find out from you, how much engagement are you doing with the subnationals to ensure that whatever plan you have, I always refer to your lean budget, can really effectively reach the people, because you have, I think, a citizenship and leadership training center, something like that, and all of that. How are you working with governors across the state and even commissioners for youth development across the state to ensure that whatever it is you're doing trickles down to the best of the intention of the government?
Well, first of all, I'll start from the commissioners of youth. We're in the process of reactivating the National Council on Youth, where all the commissioners of youth will meet with the Minister of Youth on a quarterly basis to ensure that we're well aligned in our programs and policies and other initiatives that we have, and to trickle down from the federal and cascade it to the subnational. And with the governors now, we are working to first of all, we engage them to understand what their developmental priorities are for young people and what sectors are competitive with them. I'd recently returned from Ondo State, and we had a very robust engagement with the state government, and we have agreed to collaborate in the blue economy sector, because Ondo has, especially the Araromi area of the state, is very robust, but it has a very promising water body that can be harnessed, and that the blue economy sector needs to be, tapped into to create hundreds of thousands of jobs for young people in that space. And there are also the cash crops as well in Ondo State and the southwestern part of Nigeria as a whole. The cocoa value chain, the coffee value chain, right, and of course the palm oil value chain as well. So we're working these are the programs, some of the plans in place, and we have reached an understanding with the subnationals, and we'll be going out there to reach out to all the governors across the 36 states.
Well, that's good to hear. Really, partnership is very key at this time. So what we'll do is we'll schedule another sit down, really to pieces some of the...
And maybe with the Minister of, your Minister of State as well. So let's have that round table.
So we can walk through these things.
Both of you, so it can be a robust conversation.
On a final note, Minister, there's always that challenge. It's like us versus them. And I think you referenced that before you came into government, you always had issues with previous governments. So young people see government as they're just up there, they're aloof. We say things, it's like they hear something else. So when they respond, you're wondering, didn't you hear what we asked for? Don't you understand what we feel, our yearnings? So there's always that disconnect. But I'd like you to give us a peek into President Bola Tinubu's mind this morning. I imagine you've had a conversation with him, or more than that. What does President Bola Tinubu say about the average Nigerian youth? We've heard other presidents speak about Nigerian youths. Sometimes unpalatable things came out. But what does your principal say about Nigerian youths? Does he really listen to them? Does he hear them? Does he have a heart for the Nigerian youths?
First of all, I'd say that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a father. And also, we can also see that he has demonstrated his fatherly traits by first ensuring that he creates a Ministry of Youth Development. So that goes a long way to express his commitment to young people. In conversations with him, he believes that the Nigerian youth are the ones who are the demography that will transform this country economically and politically. And he knows that they're innovative, they're creative, and he's ready to support them. And he's committed to ensure that young people are beyond saying we're empowering youth, because he's used this phrase in the past that beyond youth empowerment, I want my administration, I want to be remembered to be a president who has invested in young people, because young people are the future of this country.
Minister, we must thank you. Yet again, that roundtable, we'll be looking forward to it. Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Minister for Youth Development, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. So I look forward to coming back again.
Absolutely. We're here for you. All right.
And apologies, I really wish that I came physically to the studio, but I've just been in the field engaging, doing a lot of stakeholders engagements, and also
we understand.
I hope that yes, I hope that the tensions will be down soon, and we will be able to focus more on governance, and as opposed to being concerned about the state of the nation. Yes, we are concerned, but we really hope that that the Nigerians, I'm calling on Nigerians to please calm down and be patient with us. Their concerns are valid, and we understand that things are not very rosy at the moment, but to work with us, to work for them.
Thank you. That's why it's called a roundtable. You will not do virtual. You will come to the studio.
This is not telemedicine, right?
Thank you for coming. Thank you. All right, guys. So it's time for us to get to that.
Oh, yes.
You know, we just twisted things a bit today. Just to catch in on the minister. So let's get back to how we used to do it, yes. Which is the trends, the things you've been saying.
Majorly young Nigerians, by the way, what you're saying on social media across board. So, well, let's start with reactions still to President Bola Tinubu's address to the nation. It's been, what, 4 days?
4 days
since that address.
And it's still trending.
Nigerians are still talking about it, and that's where the point of we're saying one thing, is the government listening to us? That's where that comes in. So take a look at the first one from Teresa Tekena, and this is speaking to the president's address to the nation, saying that your words of encouragement and reassurance are a beacon of hope in these, well, turbulent times. And this user says that he or she has faith in the president's ability to guide the nation through the storm, come out stronger than ever.
All right, so Get Rabiu Yusuf says, Mr. President, you did not address the critical security issues plaguing the Northwest, especially Zamfara State, where daily killings and kidnappings by bandits occur. This should be a priority in all your addresses.
There you have it. The next user, Garba King, is now speaking to Nigerians at large, saying that Nigerians, let us stand with Mr. President and trust the process. And you see this, God bless Nigeria. You know, it's something that at some point people ask, have you said that today? Have you prayed for Nigeria today? People say, yes, it's good to pray. It's also good to work and ensure that we achieve this.
According to Timi Dakolo, we're all we have at the end of the day. Aisho_Lex says, we heard you talk about students' loan, and this has been one of the major points repeated in all your interviews. Speeches, I guess you want to say. He hasn't done interviews. What about agriculture? That is food, petrol, and others that these students would survive on. Are they supposed to get the loans to buy food or fuel on high cost after the studies? Are they supposed to go back to farming as ministers have been clamoring, or what? Our problem is not students' loan. All Nigerians are not students.
Well, there's been more reactions to the president's speech, this time by the head of a sub-national. By the way, we're going to dive deeper into that conversation this morning, but let's just give you a peek into the minds of one of the heads of sub-nationals, talking about states now. The governor of Bauchi State, Bala Mohammed, speaking again about the president's speech, saying it's empty, essentially, and the federal government should stop giving excuses. So take a look at what he says, saying that the excuse now is that they're giving state government more than enough allocation. State governors don't have control over security personnel, fuel price, exchange rate, and so on. So how do you expect them to improve in this area? So that is from Gabriel Isaiah speaking to what the governor of Bauchi State said.
Let's find out what Omoti 052 is saying about that statement from Bala Mohammed, the governor of Bauchi State. How much is foodstuff in his own state? How viable is agriculture in his state? Your statement as a governor here is just political. Show some workings as a governor too.
There you go. So this is giving you an appetizer into that conversation around subnationals. Mama Pride is asking a question, saying, what has he done for the people of Bauchi? The result should have been so much better. So it's a back and forth. I understand that, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we need to ensure that good governance is not just at one level, it cascades all the way down, federal, state, and local.
All right, so I think the last one on this particular reaction is coming from Eric Ogbonda. It says, tell him the bitter truth and make sure you utilize the money given to you in your own state.
Win-win. But on to another conversation around fuel importation. So it's come out from the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edun, that the federal government spends $600 million on fuel importation. These are figures we've heard before.
So let's be clear.
Yeah.
PMS.
Right.
Importation, right?
Yeah. So when you hear fuel in Nigeria, it's PMS. Or we just call it petrol. This first user, Jide Akintoye, one says, why wasting resources? Why import fuel when you can use that money to resuscitate our moribund or dead refineries, as the case may be? Well, August is a month that the NNPCL had said the Port Harcourt refinery will come in. And it ends by saying, this is why the dollar rate is so high. And then goes on to say more things. Jeff, next one.
Yeah, so what one is next? This should be Salisu, right?
Yeah.
Ibrahim. And then you keep asking us to produce what we eat when you know the actual cause of inflation and high cost of living is the needless importation of refined fuel at the expense of local refining. So the conversation we had, of course, Dangote says giving us PMS this month. Yeah. Should have started last month because of the fire incident.
And the month before.
Mele Kyari said, I'm not lying, you're going to get it. So our eyes are on Mele Kyari.
Yeah.
And then there are other refineries besides these two big players. So we're looking out for that as well. Will we have more time?
Oh, yes, to take yet another comment from Mr. Mele Kyari, not the one he made then, well, as far back as some weeks ago, the one he made yesterday before the National Assembly Senate Committee. And this is what he said. We are not criminals, we're not thieves, oil and gas industry is bleeding. Is referring to the NNPCL. So the GMD given a disclaimer, by the way, to people who have said that the NNPC is responsible for some of the challenges in the oil sector. But take a look at what Aegis Marine says first. Yeah, let's just put that up for you.
Let them see it.
There you go. This user says, then resign honorably if you can't stop the bleeding and stop the excuses. That's the reason you were appointed, is to stop it. People have dug up that video when he came into power.
July
that's something you've talked about
2019.
Time and again, with that symbolic cap on his head, saying that, well, the goal is to get the refineries working before the end of the previous administration.
Within the lifetime of this administration.
The previous
that's
administration.
Buhari administration.
Yeah, Buhari administration.
He said the four of them.
Yeah.
One is not even working. So the guy said, excuse yourself. Sheriff Taiwo says, then who are you people? For all these years, none has been sincere over those cabals who don't want progress for this nation. NNPCL and oil and gas industries are a problem. Ask anyone, what is our major problem in Nigeria? May God heal our nation. Amen.
There you have it. There's so much more that you're talking about, but as always, keep sending them in. #CTV Morning Brief or on WhatsApp as well. We're big on your reactions. That's what makes the show what it is. But we'll go on a quick break now. When we return, that debate about it's your fault, FG. No, it's your fault, state. How about the local government? We'll bring all of the sides of this argument together and ensure that we focus on the issue, which is good governance in Nigeria. That's in a few seconds. Stay with us. Almost looks like everyone is passing the buck at this moment. Lawmakers say, well, we're not just the problems. What about the ministers in the executive? When you ask the federal government, they say, no, we're not the only ones at fault here. How about state governors? State governors say, well, what about local governments? And everybody seems to be passing the buck. But where lies our solution? This morning, we look beyond all of the back and forth and pay attention to the real issues. How do we ensure that Nigeria's wealth, big or small, really serves the people and not just a few? We're joined on the program in our Lagos studio by Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, who's a Deputy Director of the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, a good governance advocate and human rights lawyer. Mr. Oluwadare, you're welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. You make that sound like I'm contesting for the position of a governor.
Well, that would be the day. Then the questions would change right now. But I know you've been following this back and forth, and it's been on for weeks now. It looks like it's growing momentum, and we're not getting anywhere because everybody's blaming somebody. We gave states 570 billion. Ask them. States say it's not enough. If you convert it to dollars, it's even less than what we've been getting. So everybody's turning their heads and wondering, who then do we pay attention to and ask questions? For you, how do you sift through all of the noise and pay attention to the real issues first?
Thank you very much, Coyote. I like the way you put it. Sift through all the noise and pay attention on what is the real focus in this instance. But point of correction, this didn't start now. I mean the back and forth. The blame game didn't start now. You recall in December 2022, Buhari had made the same allegations against the state governors. I remember, I think it was the passing out for the course 44 at the Nigerian Institute of Politics and Strategic Studies. He made the same allegations about governors preferring or tampering with local government funds. And so it's been consistent.
But it's just grown momentum.
Yes, it is
up to a loud
because of recent
now.
events. Yeah. The truth, which is what Nigerians should focus on, is holding everybody in public office accountable, whether they are elected or appointed. And that starts from the president to the councillors at local government level. That is just the focus. And we should be able to do that, devoid of sentiments that either tribe on politics or tribe on religion. So the data available showing disbursement of funds is there in the public domain for people to use as a tool to hold those in public offices accountable, including the president. The president cannot run from his task by blaming the state governors. The state governors cannot abdicate their responsibilities to be accountable to the people by either blaming the president or the dollar. They knew the situation of Nigeria before they either canvassed to be voted for or to be appointed. And that is why Nigerians must be consistent. I do not think there should be a choice of focus, either on the federal, the state, or the local. It should be consistently spread across board. Now, those conversations might have nuances or context to them depending on recent events. But we must be equal in holding everybody to account, including those in the National Assembly who also have their roles. And if you ask me, Coyote, I think the problem with this is that Nigerians are not educated enough, and I'm not talking of formal education, about the systems and processes of governance to be able to check everyone. So it's easy for National Assembly members, for instance, and we've seen that in response to Sarah's advocacy, to say, what about governors? They are doing this, why are you coming after us? And so Nigerians need to own that advocacy and that conversation to understand everyone's role and to be able to hold them accountable for it. For instance, to be able to ask the National Assembly members, how have you been performing in the oversight in keeping both the president in check and even some of the allocations that have been made to the state and the federal MDAs particularly. And also ask the state of our assemblies, how have you been doing that oversight to ensure that at the state level, all the activities of the governor and his cabinet is also being put in check. And I'll give you a very good example. The federal government, one of the federal government agencies that we've been using their tool over time is the Auditor General of the Federation. And these reports are produced annually. And if you look at the reports, I'm sure we've had conversation around there before, they produce damning figures, trillions every year, that couldn't just be accounted for. Of course, we'll be using that tool to advocate about transparency at the federal government level. But the same constitution also provides for the position of the Auditor General in each of the 36 states. So the question is this report being replicated in the states? If it is being replicated, I have not seen a copy. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I have not seen one to be able to even use it. And also, one of the outcomes of the Auditor General's report is that the National Assembly should take it and use it. They can also call for investigations and make resolutions as part of the oversight function. We've not even seen that done at the state level? We've not seen the report. How much more for the House of Assembly to use them as a tool to ask questions from the various MDAs that is also replicated at the state level? And I think when we're having conversations like this, we should understand that even the state governors who have been involved in these malfeasance also is taking a cue from the federal government. So the federal government cannot divorce itself from what is happening at the state level. If the federal government can disobey order of court, what do you expect state governors to do?
It's just a cycle of the
absurd. It's
absurd.
a cycle, really. If the federal government cannot be accountable to the people in terms of figures, and I'm saying this from the experience that Sarah has, annually we issue nothing less than 100 freedom of information requests across all the tiers and arms of government. And the return rate, positive return rate, is less than 1%. And I mean, that means giving us information that requires the citizens of Nigeria.
If you issue out 100 and your return rate is 1%.
Positive return rate.
So that's
positive
just,
responses.
That's just one.
Yes. And that is,
out of 100.
Yes, that gives us the information we've asked for. That is at the federal level across, from the presidency, across all the MDAs. So what do you expect from state governors? So when we also send to state governors, we also get this peculiar response. They also say that in court.
So now that it looks like legislation is failing because of the managers of our laws, what should we resort to as a people?
Advocacy. And it's very important that we understand this. It works. I think the Nigerian experience of the Nigerian people have got to the point, and you get this cynical response a lot, where people think, like, it wouldn't work. Nobody saw we talking yesterday, they know here. It works. If it doesn't work...
No, because you're saying that out of 100 FOIs, you get 1%.
Positive response.
Positive response. How is that working?
It's part of the advocacy. It's building the pressure. It's building a critical mass where people continue to speak. If it doesn't work, why is government so interested in enacting anti-social media laws? Why is government so interested in passing anti-NGO laws? Why is government so invested in clamping on freedom of expression, including some of the punitive measures against media organizations? It does work. I think what Nigerians do is to understand these processes enough and continue to build on it. Again, devoid of the sentiments of politics, tribe, and religion. And I'm sure that critical mass is being built. And then we'll be able to hold those in public offices accountable.
So now we're looking at, let's even go down to, let's leave federal and state, and now we're looking at local government. Some people, we even saw, I think it was, I don't want to quote the wrong states now, but there was a report we saw that some local governments in a particular state have told themselves they don't want to be members of Algon. So, so they don't want to be members of Algon anymore, so the money can still go back to Jack and all of that. So that calls to question our independence as a people, our ability to think differently as a people. So at the local government level, now that we have local government financial autonomy, quote and unquote, how can the people at the grassroots, who are always being used as tools for various things, how can they hold the authorities to account? Because look, federal government looks like this one, where do I even start from? It's people like you that can talk to federal government. The man in my village, he has a local government chairman. That's the best he can do. So how should he proceed?
It's very important that people understand governance. And by this, I don't mean you have to have a PhD in economics or governance. No. And the Nigerian people simply wants food on the table. But in the structure of governance, people need to understand the concept of accountability. So it means it starts first and foremost. And this is very important to correct it. The president is not the father of the nation. He is a public officer that is answerable to the people. And that goes to the governor and the local government chairman as well.
That's referring to what the Minister of Youth said.
Yes, I was listening earlier. And that means that we must be able to frame conversations around such issues. If I see you as my father, can I ask you how you spend the money that was meant for everybody this morning? I won't be able to ask you. And so it is within that context, when I speak of educating people about governance, it doesn't mean you know everything about government. You don't need to go to school to understand that. And to be able to hold those in public offices to account, again, whether they are elected or appointed. And that is where it starts. And to drive the context of this conversation, we can look at, for instance, two critical areas, health and education. The UBEC Act places the responsibility for primary education and the first 3 years of secondary school on states and the local government, taking that from the Constitution. And the UBEC Act was enacted to give effect to that purpose. And the UBEC Act is very clear in Section 1 that the federal government's intervention will be simply to provide matching grants to the UBEC funds, and then the state and local government will have to provide theirs. Please, it would be very interesting for Nigerians to go to the website of UBEC. And that organization has tried up till 2023. The figures are there from 2008 to 2023 as to the states, each state's outstanding figures that is yet to be matched. And what that means is that UPEC has provided their own funds, but there are a lot of states that have not provided their counterpart funds to be able to assess it. So it means those state governors, people should ask that question from the local government, because it's a joint effort between the state and local government, to say that if the law says primary school education, the first 6 years of primary school and first 3 years of secondary education is free, what are you doing? And it's not enough to say you've built schools. If you've built schools or built classrooms, so to speak, and you have not paid the counterpart funding you should do to get the source from UBEC to build more schools and private facilities, you've not done enough.
It's always been said that Nigerians are like the easiest people to govern. If there's any, rating like that, so easy people to govern.
Where did that come from?
They don't ask for too much, and that's why I said if there's any rating like that, Nigerians don't ask for too much. They just ask for the basics. They're not asking you to land in the moon, for example. They're not asking you to build space shuttles or to build, magnanimous things. Just provide the basics. Let there be power, infrastructure, education. By the way, we're going to call out those states that are not matching the funds. So obviously they're not paying attention. Education is not important to them in simple terms. So education, health, just the basic things, right? And even the Constitution says that the government is responsible for the welfare of the citizens, not anything too big. So Nigerians are like that good employer. Doesn't stress you. Just come to work early, do your barest minimum. They don't fire you. I don't think the Nigerian citizens have been able to successfully impeach a governor. All these impeachments we've seen are political. They've not recalled any lawmaker. Whatever we've seen is just storming a teacup. Right? We don't do extra. Even the End Bad Governance protest, they gave ample time. They came out and said that these are our demands. All of the groups came out, except for other places where we had hoodlums, infiltrating and causing mayhem. So Nigerians are easy to govern, but it looks like this is not working out because they've been taken for granted time and again. And I think that's a point Jeffrey has tried to make. How do we push the envelope? How do we do beyond what we have been doing? You said Nigerians don't really know how to engage government. So speak to that Nigerian today who's saying, okay, I like what you're saying, but I want to engage my local government. I want to engage my governor, or at least the head of my state. What options are available to them?
Thank you, Kari. It starts with a mindset of knowing that this engagement is part of my own civic duty and a right, and that the governor or any public officer I'm engaging also has a right and a duty to respond to me. Because if you don't understand, if you don't have that kind of mindset, the approach might be different, or whatever responses you have, the reaction might be different. It starts at that level with that mindset. And that now dovetails into perhaps actions that citizens can do. And issue an FYI request. The law is there. And again, you don't need the law is so simple to understand. It simply states that every Nigerian can ask questions about any public information. And it doesn't even have to be written. We are just writing it to provide documentary proof. It doesn't have to be written. And that the state institutions must provide the answer within 7 days.
So you can go to your local government office.
Yes. And ask in person.
And say, this road is bad.
Yes.
Are you the one responsible for it?
Yes.
How much did you get? But Nigerians, some people are afraid. That they will come for me. They'll say my own is too much. And I think it's a culture we need to abandon. So what should you have in mind? Is there protection available for Nigerians that when they ask this question, they are not targeted or they are not ostracized? That's usually the fear.
There is no way we can give those guarantees. I can give those guarantees that they wouldn't be targeted. And with the context and the precedent we've seen in Nigerian states, that is likely to happen. But that should not dictate the people. Because if that stops us, then we might as well not do anything. And I think that's perhaps what some people who are in government who do not mean well would want. And that is why we must
For you to be afraid.
For you to
ask for your rights.
Yes. So I just told you the figures of our freedom of information request. That's enough to put anyone off even doing. But we'll continue. We're probably going to issue another one this week. We will continue.
So at the end of the day,
so
by inference, what I hear is we don't have institutions.
We do have institutions.
I mean, in the real sense of institutions, to say independence of this institution, to be able to say, I can look in the face of a president as a member of cabinet and say no, and stand by my word as an institution. I can look in the face of a governor and say, no, this is what the law says. I will stand by what the law says. So how do we strengthen institution in the real sense? Because look at what happened in the the Donald Trump election that he lost to Joe Biden. And he was looking at Mike Pence to go his way. Mike Pence stood by the American people however I want to interpret that, that may likely not happen in Nigeria if that was our culture.
But we can't do that overnight, really. You're asking the question of it's more of a social.
I'm asking where do we begin from? Because that's
we
actually...
need to continue. I don't think it's a matter of beginning. We need to continue and escalate. The Nigerian people, they are trying, really. So it's not, we don't need new methods, so to speak. What we need is to persist and scale up. The Nigerian people are trying. You see, look, I've seen you read that tweet today. That is out of millions of tweets on good governance this morning.
And I hope you know, if they have their way, they'll ban those again.
Of course, because
former President Muhammadu Buhari banned Twitter and gave us reasons that we later saw and said, oh God, what was this reason at the end of the day? So those are the things we're talking about. It looks like the only voice they have is social media. And even that, if some governments have their way, they'll go after the people on social media. So the question, we'll repeat that question because you're the one holding government's accounts, at least at the level that you do. How more effectively can we do this so that they realize that sovereignty belongs to the people? Because some people in leadership are autocratic by nature. They don't even understand democracy. We don't want to call names, but we know those who have those. If they have their way, they will be dictators within a democracy. How do we go from here? What do we do from here?
Jeffrey, the answer is the same. SERAP is not doing anything magical. So, which is why I spoke to that mindset and was about to give out practical steps that citizens can take. But without the mindset, you would not be able to sustain the actions.
So ready to die, is that the mindset?
Not necessarily.
Ready
to fight failure.
I think it's coconut head more than...
maybe depends on the location you find yourself. Some is coconut head, some is suicide.
My own is egghead. It's soft. So, and that means it is not... what I'm saying is we need to continue what we are doing, and then to be persistent and to scale up, which is what I'm speaking to the mindset. Because if you have a mindset that thinks once you ask, you get, you're probably likely to give up or become cynical. And then when you're cynical, you become skeptical, and then you do nothing. So we cannot afford to do anything. We need to continue to persist and to scale up. Yeah, we need to continue to do what we're doing.
You are going to reel out the steps. This conversation is very important for young Nigerians. A lot of them just reached the voting age. Some of them...
Very interesting, 2027.
Exactly, and a lot of them maybe voted in the previous election and they're wondering, what's the point? I'm not going to vote again. And we are waiting for the day they jackpot. You know, that's the goal for some people. It is 10 days to jackpot. They're counting down. And it's sad that that's partly a Nigerian dream for some people. They see that, oh, this is not where I will thrive until I get out there. Even if it is Sudan, they just want to go out there. So for those Nigerians who have thought, nah, leave it, let's set it aside, who are meant to be our future, but sadly, they might not stay for that future. Is there another way to hit this home for them? Because it's a dire situation we find ourselves in. If this trend continues, you wonder, where will Nigeria be in 20 years?
So just to add to what Kayode is saying, you see, if you notice, we're going around the same thing differently. Because we are afraid that what is going on and this bottling up could result to the anarchy government always starts when people want to protest. That is the fear. And we need people like you to be able to explain it to us.
And that is why, again, the answer is why. Okay, maybe let's frame it this way. I'll probably make it a question to you guys, but you don't have to answer. It's
no, we will not answer.
Why is SERAP persisting in spite of what is seen as apparent resistance from the government? That is the same reason I am selling to the people that they need to persist and continue, because it works. And one major fact to support the fact that it works is that there is pushback from government. They want to shut it. If it's not working, they wouldn't bother. So it works. And so I've just given you one example of some of the challenges we face. There are lots more, but we'll persist. We'll probably issue another FY this week. So citizens must have that mindset and continue to scale up in their engagements and advocacy to hold government to account. When social media was shut, Nigerians are doing that already, which is why I said persist and scale up. When social media was shut down, Nigerians resorted to using VPNs. And I remember then the Attorney General then had made a threat about arresting any Nigerian that uses VPNs. We went to the ECOWAS court. The ECOWAS court gave a ruling restraining him from doing that, and Nigerians continue to use VPNs.
And that's not to rule out the activities of nefarious elements who can also use social media for the wrong reasons. Now, this is not arming government with a tool to want to ban it, but we also need to recognize that some of the things you see on social media are either done by bots, either done by people who don't have the interest of the nation at heart.
They call
what they want is just anarchy. Let anarchy loom. Okay, I said that. Not referring to anybody in particular, but let there be anarchy in the country. So that's not ruling that out. But we're speaking to the vast majority who want a better nation for us all. You said you were going to reel out some of these practical steps. So by way of arming Nigerians, the everyday Nigerian, with tools to be able to engage government adequately.
Yes, I've spoken about the mindset that they need to have, which is understanding governance and why it should be.
Right.
And then I've given the FY is one of the tools that Nigerians can use.
Right.
And then litigation is another tool. Litigation is not necessarily adversarial. And I've had a bunch of cases across government officials that we are in court against.
Or expensive.
Yes, it can also be expensive, but not so much as what is the opportunity cost of not doing anything. The opportunity cost of not doing anything is worse enough.
But then...
Do you know what it costs for people to be on the street for 2 or 3 days, leaving their businesses?
Right.
That is the cost already. There are people hungry, by the way.
So what happens to the trust? Thankfully, you're a lawyer. You're a legal practitioner, so you can speak for the judiciary. For some people, they think it's rigged.
I can only speak for the bar, by the way.
Well, you are in the judiciary. I put you in the but I get the point. Some people's mentality is that this is rigged. We've had the CJM time and again, trying to, will I say, hand out punishment to people or judges who have, done things that are not right and all of that. But still, that mentality persists that you cannot go to the judiciary and expect justice to be served. Is that true?
Not necessarily as a matter of fact, but I think it's more of vicarious experiences of people. We go to court, and sometimes we win, and sometimes we lose, but we persist. And that is the mindset I'm willing to tell all Nigerians to share. If we get to that point where we look at all these avenues, a freedom of information request, engagement with government, public enlightenment campaigns, and even litigation, and we say, you know what, nothing works, let's do nothing. Can we consider the fact that that is what some people in public institutions want, and then they get to do what they like? We cannot afford to give them that chance.
So we need you to speak further on the issue of the integrity, without impugning on the entire system. Of course, there are good people within the system. So let's give you examples of how Nigerians look at it in terms of optics. So they look at Kano, for instance. We have 2 emirs.
Yeah.
That is as a result of court case. We look at Edo State. We have 2 deputy governors, court case. We have River State. We have 2 houses of assembly, court case. So when Nigerians look at this, they're like, forget. How do you convince such a person?
The benefits of doing something far much more outweigh the benefits of doing nothing. To me, that is simple enough to get people, and that's why I want to use the example of a protest. Of course, people lost by participating in the protest because they left their businesses and they protested. So why can't we do that also to engagements that can further push what we want to do? We are not giving up in Sarah. We continue to fight cases, even though we win some. And we've had judges even sometimes openly confrontational with what we do, but we continue. And that is what I am telling Nigerians to continue to do. We can't afford to give up, really.
Right. So we will come back to where we started from, which is the blame game. That is on
federal, state, local.
Federal, state, and local. So what are the roles of a state? So we'll properly contextualize it. What should we expect from states? Because that will decide the questions you ask them. Because again, they can say, no, this is not under my purview. This is not the concurrent. This is on the other list. So what are the roles for state government? Because this 570 billion, we did the math yesterday, about 15.8 billion across states, each state. So
and the FCT.
And the FCT. So money has hit the bank. So what are those questions that we can ask states very importantly?
Okay, let's start from the economics. Then we'll go to the legal, and then we'll come to the practicalities of sectors.
I love it.
So let's start with the legal. So we have the federal, the state, and the local governments. In our budgetary systems, there is a budget for the federation called Nigeria annually. There are budgets in each of the 36 states also annually, and the same also transpires in the local governments. So when the budget from the federal government is passed, the states also pass their own budgets, which is an estimate of income and proposed expenditure. So it means that whatever as part of the expenditure of the federal government is what they share to the state government, which is what is called FAC allocations. And don't forget, the state governments have their own budgets, which they want to use part of those funds, match it with IGR to fund, and then particularly also loans to fund. And that means that From the legal perspective of what is on the concurrent list and the exclusive list, there are things that the state governors should do. We can now link that to sectors. I've spoken about education, which is UBEC. So it means, for instance, if it's situated within education, UBEC, which is the federal government agency, provides a part of the fund, and the state provides matching funds.
So it's joint responsibility.
It's joint responsibility. What it means is that states will provide their own figures. And please, can someone just go to the UBEC website where we'll see these figures? And then those funds are able to be used for primary education, which by law should be free, and the first 3 years of education. That includes building classrooms, payment of salaries of teachers, and also other things that would make education accessible. So that is clearly between the state and local government. In this instance, it is for the federal government to provide the first part of the grant through UBEC. Now, we can also look at health. There is the National Health Act, which provides a minimum of 2.5% from the Consolidated Revenue Fund to that particular fund. And it's very interesting to note. We can look at what the provisions of that fund is meant to look at. So we have looked at two sectors now, education and health. And it's very interesting when you find out that what that fund is supposed to be used for is for tertiary health facilities, secondary and primary. And tertiary will simply be the teaching hospitals at the federal level, and then the secondary will be the hospitals at the state level, and the primary will be at the local government level. So that means that the job of the state government is clearly cut out in that instance. They are also supposed to draw from those funds, and there are percentages of those funds in Section 11 of the National Health Act that is supposed to be used for the recurrent percentage of salaries of those doctors and nurses at the local government and at the state level, and also building hospitals. The state governors are not doing well in that instance. But there are aspects on the exclusive list that belong exclusively to the federal government. But that doesn't mean that the state governors will not be accountable for the funds that they've been given.
So let's expand the conversation even further. Serap is known for most of these court cases every other day. Like, is Serap not suing somebody today? Serap has to sue somebody tomorrow. Just wanting accountability at the end of the day. I want you to look at the Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration in the last over a year.
Don't ask me to do a scorecard, please.
No, I'm talking about your assessment of his fight against corruption. Although he wasn't as big on corruption, or he's not as big on corruption, anti-corruption rather, like former President Muhammadu Buhari was, and now we're seeing that what was all of that about at the end of the day. But what's Serap's assessment of this government's drive towards curbing corruption? Because that is the cancer within the system at the end of the day.
This administration is yet to get a pass mark, not at all, in fighting corruption. And let's speak to it. Fighting corruption involves a lot of things. But let's look at two major elements of fighting corruption: transparency and accountability. It means that the federal government, under the president, must demonstrate that his administration is transparent. It means that information must be available to the Nigerian people. It also means that the government is accountable to the people through the various structures that exist, including anti-corruption agencies, including the Auditor General of the Federation, including the National Assembly, and including the people who engage with the system to hold the federal government, the president being at the top, accountable. And I'll give you an example. We've gotten 3 judgments this year alone that this administration is yet to enforce, to obey rather. And those judgments simply speak to transparency and accountability. How can you say you are fighting corruption when we as an organization have to go to court to compel you to provide information, and then after spending 2 years in court we get judgments and you don't obey the judgment? How can I say that you're fighting corruption? That would not be true. And that shows you, and I'm just giving examples. And of course, there are many more examples that are abound.
Is Serap oversuing?
No, because really, so let me give you an example. This UBEC that I spoke about, the matching funds from UBEC, we wrote to all the 36 governors and asked them, based on the details of the facts we got from UBEC, tell us details of how much you have assessed and when you want to do so. Do you believe they did not respond to that freedom of information request?
None of them.
And we ended up in court. And they hired lawyers. Some got private lawyers, some got lawyers from the Ministry of Justice, still wasting taxpayers' funds to come and defend such a case.
They have to spend the money.
The information you needed. And done the right thing.
Without
they came
money.
To defend the reason why they will not give you the information.
Yes.
So let's say it again. Let's be clear. Slow down. Let's slow down.
So we said
you wrote, slow down. You wrote to them, say, I need this information. And they refused to give information.
Yes.
You now took them to court.
Yes.
They came to court.
Yes.
And spent money in court to say we will not.
They are still spending money in court, by the way. Some of them got private lawyers. Some of them got lawyers from the Ministry of Justice. And don't forget, for every time a lawyer in the Ministry of Justice comes to court, he's spending taxpayers' money.
Absolutely. And it's mind-boggling. In fact, now that you said that, we should get those data.
And that's just one case.
Let's get those data out, Mr. Oluwadari. I'm looking at the UBEC's website now. Unaccessed matching grants from 2005 to 2023. It looked like from 2005 to 2019, most states tried to match the grants. But now, let's take a look at what each state has in deficit. Abia State, 4.2 billion naira, unaccessed, by the way, so they're not able to match. Adamawa State, now this is as at March the 20th, the latest that UBEC released. Adamawa, 2.6 billion naira. Akwa Ibom, 1.3 billion naira. Anambra, 2.6 billion naira. Bauchi, also 2.6 billion naira. And I can go on and on. The only state that has in deficit that has maybe accessed and even has more, the minus is Borno, minus 71 naira. I see Delta actually has also accessed to a large extent. Enugu, I see Jigawa here, Nasarawa, Ondo, I see Sokoto, Taraba.
Giving us the figures.
Zamfara. Those are the ones that have accessed, but the others still have like
a lot. And you can see the breakdown in the years.
Yes, across the years, most of them have no access for 2023, so they've not matched it for 2023. So they can't collect it. So I'm talking about states that have 2 billion, 2.6 billion, 3 billion. I see Imo has 3 billion. You can see Kwara also with, is it 2.6 billion? Even Lagos State with 1.3
So let's give them the total here. Grand total, 54 billion.
54 billion naira. That's the grand total.
Unaccessed.
Yes. And you can see what that translates to. What the commitment of the state is simply to provide the matching grants, access this funds.
So let's put it in the counterpart fund.
Yes, that is what they should bring forward, access these loans, these funds, it's not a loan by the way, and then be able to use it. And this means pay teachers' salaries, build classrooms, equip them, and books and everything that would aid the study of the children. And these are governors that would go to get loans under the guise of infrastructure development.
There may be other factors, and that's why we need to get the governors, the Nigeria Governors Forum, at least the individual states,
to speak to
the commissioners for education to speak to this. So is it as a result of the bottlenecks or?
We gave them the opportunity when we wrote to them to ask these questions. Don't you think that would have been a good opportunity to tell us, writing to us to say, no, these are the issues? They didn't. I told you, they are in court defending why they shouldn't provide the information.
We're going to give them
a
slim chance right now to speak to this, each of the commissioners of education. And we're going to be putting out this data out from time to time. It's kind of like a spreadsheet, really. So we'll break it down from
2005
to channels, because you guys don't go to court.
So 2005 to 2023. So let's begin to wind down on this particular. It looks like, so that we don't catch ourselves going like in cycles at the end of the day. As we started the conversation, we talked about this major blame game. Let's go back to the state houses of assembly, because at the end of the day, what you are doing as Sarah, what I am doing as media, is what the houses of assembly are supposed to do. But we keep saying it and again, and they may argue. The Nigerian people see houses of assembly as appendages of the governor. For the people within the assembly who are really resolved to say, look, we need to really be independent and get to hold the executive to account, where should they even start from? Because they may be in the minority.
Yes,
and not necessarily party.
No, they do exist. They do exist. We've had engagement with some of them, so they do exist. And not everyone in public office in Nigeria is bad. There are very good people who are willing to do what they should do. And that means, so I would not say that they don't have the understanding and the knowledge of governance. They have. What they need will be the support of the people in case there is a bit of a backlash to what they are doing. And so by the people, I mean the people who voted him, their constituents, the media, civil society organizations, to encourage such people to do what is right. And as a form of context to give what the House of Assembly should do, they are the one that looks at the budget presentation by the governor, that pass it, and that be add with some plus and minus. They are the ones that are also involved in some of these loans as part of expenditure of the state. They are also involved in oversight to check every MD at the state level. They are also supposed to look at the report of the Auditor General of the state and also make resolutions on them. They are not doing enough of this, really, and they should.
Clearly, there's a lot of work to be done, but the good news is that it is work that can be done So this is calling out to Nigerians across board. It's important to engage at whatever level and to do it, not succumb to whatever tactics to make you not
Cynicism,
to do it. Exactly.
Blackmail, fear.
It is very important. This is our nation, Nigeria, and we have to definitely make it work. Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, it's been an interesting time with you, looking through some of these challenges of governance and how we must continue to do the work. I don't know when next year in court, but I know that that's going to be.
You should come to court sometime.
We actually come to court.
We get your report.
In person.
In person.
Maybe
right?
Jeffrey and Kyle, they come to court sometimes.
That will be the day.
That will be good. So whenever you have your next case, call us.
Yeah, and then you introduce you to some of the lawyers defending the government, so you can ask them questions.
That would be a good.
That would be a good one.
That would be a good ambush.
Well,
so just go, Mr. Lawyer. Why are you?
Well, they also they're just doing their jobs, really. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Kolawole Oluwadare, Deputy Director, Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, also good governance advocate and human rights lawyer. Thank you for your work and wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey and Kyle. I'm happy to be here.
We'll take a moment now. When we return, we'll give you a taste of Paris, not the love part, the sporting part, right? Nigerian athletes are there right now trying to make the country proud. We've had the sparks, the brilliant sparks. We've had some letdowns as well, but what are the big lessons that we should learn? That's in a moment. Stay with us.
My best. We did well, we performed very well, but it just happens he performed a bit better that day. Oh, it's amazing. It makes me full of pride. You know, representing the country I was born, my parents' countries, my grandparents' country. It's very prideful.
Our sports correspondent, Austin Okonakwan, joins us from Paris. Austin, I know there's a lot of romance you can talk about in Paris and the rest, but it's a tough period right now for Nigerian athletes. It's good to see you again, Austin. Last night it was a mix of different emotions for Nigerians. Watching the Tigress, putting in all of their strength. I mean, the fourth quarter they did well, but they're not the only ones representing Nigeria. So let's just do a walk through the days and what you have seen so far, Austin. Talk us through what the experience has been like for Nigerian athletes, the good stories, the letdowns, and all of that, Austin.
Sport greetings to you, Coyote and Jeffrey, and of course our viewers watching us from different parts of the world. Greetings from Stade de France. That's the stadium right behind me, and it's already buzzing because the morning activities are just about to begin. Mixed feelings for Team Nigeria at this 2024 Paris Olympics. But yet again, it has exposed the lessons. We always see these lessons, we document these lessons, but we do not implement. So I just hope that this time around, we will go back home and don't go to sleep and look at the positives and find ways to consolidate on them and then tackle the negatives head on and see ways that we can bring change to sports in Nigeria. Let me talk about the positives. For the first time ever in our history, in an individual event, tonight we're going to have 3 finalists in the long jump event. It means, Coyote, that out of the 12 finalists that will file out, 3 are Nigerians. Ese Brume, Ruth Soro, and Christiana Ochonago. That's fantastic for the country. Let's go back again. The last time that we had a man in the 400 meters final was Innocent Egbunike, Seoul 1988. I'm sure the 3 of us were in primary school at the time, or even just getting to secondary school. But we've broken that record, and it's good that these things are happening. It shows we've got the quality, our athletes are dedicated, but administration, leadership, that's what is lacking. That's the icing on the cake, and that's why I keep calling out leaders of sports in Nigeria. Coming to the Olympics is a long-term project. You just can't take people to Germany for 2 weeks and expect them to come to this global stage and win medals. I like what the D Tigress did. I was at this meeting with the minister and the MBBF president with the D Tigress just before the game against the United States of America, just to say thank you for breaking the records. You know, we have never had an African team, male or female, reach the quarterfinals in the basketball event at the Olympics. These fantastic ladies broke it. And I was right there at the Bessie Arena to watch them against the United States. And what a fight. What a fight. The United States thought they were going to have a blowout win, but these ladies came out, fought in the fourth quarter, and then cut that lead down. They are champions already, Coyote.
All right, Austin, so let's stay with the people you've been calling out, because I know you always call them out, and they need to be called out. In fact, there has to be an expanded calling out, literally. What are they failing at? Are they approaching sports like politics, or the managers of our sports are not fit for the office? What exactly is this failure at the end of the day? Olympics, you have 4 years, just like an election in Nigeria and every other climb, and yet we turn out like this.
That's right, Jeffrey, they treat it as politics. And I've said it, until we start putting the right people in sports, because this field is technical. It requires specialists, people who are driven by passion, people who want to understand what it means to turn a raw talent in Ikorodu into a world champion. You just don't bring anybody because he played good party politics and put in charge to lead this sort of project. It's long term. I met an assistant coach from Mexico, and he said they're going to win silver or bronze at this Olympics. That the athletes they brought here, the boxers have been in long-term training for 9 years, Jeffrey. 9 years. And the least they expect from that guy is a silver or a bronze. Watch how they didn't put pressure on him to win gold, because they know he's just coming up, competing at the global stage. So until we put the right persons, people who understand this sports field. Let's take, for instance, Daniel Igali, who is the president of the Nigeria Wrestling Federation. He's an Olympian, gold medalist, but he did it for Canada. He's the president of the Wrestling Federation. Look at how wrestling has been doing so well in the last 10 years under his leadership. That's the sort of people we should be having. Frank Obi with badminton. You could go on with handball. Some of these guys, they understand the field because they are passionate, they are driven, they are committed. But when you put a politician who is just in this, just for clout or just to fulfill party objectives, then there's no way we'll move anywhere. We need to change it, and it starts with the leadership, Jeffrey.
You know, Austin, it's something we say, we've said it time and again, and it's just curious as though we talk, but nobody is listening. But still, our athletes find a way to still shine. You know, we see bright sparks, and we'll go back to some of those, positives that we've recorded so far. I think it was Samuel who ran last night in the 400 meters. That was great to see as well, which you talked about. But I want you to speak to something that a lot of people have said, and I'm going to tone it down a bit. So in this contingent, we've had more women than men. And so far, the women have been doing great stuff. Should we just decide and say, okay, maybe our contingent... Okay, you know the question I'm asking. Should we just pay attention to the women? Because it looks like they're the ones getting us the results. But what have you noticed? What formula is working for the ones that are doing well? Let's speak to that.
I think women are better managers, and then they know how to, juggle around a lot of things. Shout out to every woman competing in sports in Nigeria. And that's why when I come on TV, I keep preaching inclusion, that what we do for the men, we must do double for the women. At the Commonwealth Games, guys, remember, all the gold medals Nigeria won in Birmingham, they all came from women. Today, we have 3 women competing in the final in the long jump event for Nigeria. We have our hopes on Star Girl, Tobiloba Amuson. We have our hopes on Star Girl in wrestling, Ojuanyo Adekroye. She'll get on the mat today. Last Olympics in Tokyo, the 2 medals we won came from women. It's just something about women managing themselves properly. They know how to turn something small into something mighty. And that's what we're seeing with sports in Nigeria. But then again, it's also another call that we are probably not giving attention or the sort of polishing to our male athletes. Maybe we just think that, oh, they can just go do it with their abilities. They can go do it with their talent. It's not enough. You know, we must put them through that process. We should also be humble. Ask the women what they're doing. Do more for even the women to tell the women to teach the men how this thing is done.
Beautiful.
For instance, we came here with 5 wrestlers, 6 wrestlers. 5 are women. Just 1 is a guy. And when I spoke to him, Amutuwa told me that he's getting inspiration from the women. I said, that's good humility. That's what I think our administrators should do. Now we have a model for success. Women in the country, they are doing so well. Our leaders, go and find out what they are doing, because it is still with the same lean resources that they are turning something rough into diamond. So let's be humble, ask them what they are doing, and do more for them. I will also give attention to the men. It's long-term projects, guys.
All right, Austin, there are so many sports, including new ones like breakdancing now we have at the Olympics. Since we don't have so much in terms of contingents like the Americas and the Chinas of this world with all the monies, we have just maybe less than 100 people. Where should we focus on in terms of competitive advantage so we can make the most? You talked about the guy, is he from Morocco, who has been training for 9 years, and they gave him the target, silver, bronze medal. Where should we be focusing on as a country, since we don't have all the numbers at the end of the day? Because we can't just spread our energy and it's already too thin.
I like the fact that you're thinking we should narrow it down. I'm saying we should scatter everything. If we cannot reshuffle, scatter everything and start again. You know, when you've got a faulty foundation plan, you don't go ahead building that structure. It's going to collapse. And that's what has been happening to us time and time again. Go back, Jeffrey, to when we were doing well with our sports. Back in the day, we were doing so well with school sports. We were doing so well with the grassroots. Look at when our football was shining. You can tell that then even the principal's corps, the academicals, we were doing so well. We abandoned it. We ignored the foundation. And what can the righteous do? Nothing. So we started suffering and started depending on just talent. With our population, with our markets as a people, why are we having the number of contingents that we have here? Why should Kenya come to the Olympics and win more medals than Nigeria? Look at what Algeria is doing. Look at what Morocco is doing. Today, I'm so confident. We've got 3 finalists in the long jump.
Right.
We must end up on the podium unless something drastically goes wrong. That's the confidence when you have a lot of athletes competing at this Olympics. Look at the United States, China. Why are they dominating? Because they have spread their wings and they are flying. But it takes a lot of investment. Human capital, there's going to be talent, discovery and development. You invest in coaching, infrastructure development. You see, it's not just get up, oh, in 2 weeks we're going to the Olympics, let's go and win medals. It's not going to happen. We are good with wrestling. We can put into wrestling. We have shown time and time again that we're good with track and field. But because we went to sleep, we're struggling with track and field now. Where is football? Again, the men didn't qualify. The women came here, but they did the best that they could do. Where is basketball? The men didn't qualify, but the women came here. So you see, there's something that is going wrong that we need to address. Austin. And all that is speaking to us is go and correct what is wrong at the foundation.
All right, Austin, we have to run now, but just 30 seconds before we wind out. 13th day of the Olympics. I think we have a few more days to go. I want you to prophesy, Austin. You know, we're big on things like this. How many gold, silver,
Let's just have many medals.
No, I want to be specific.
Okay.
How many golds,
silver, medals,
or bronze medals do you see Nigeria getting at day 19 at the end of the Olympics?
I tell you, day 13, and we've got 3 ladies in the long jump final. I will not tell you the color of the medal, but I'm super, super optimistic that 1 or 2 will end up on the podium. I pray God answers this prayer. I believe Toby Amuson can do something. I don't want us to put pressure on them. I believe Oduanyo Adekuroye, when she gets on the mat today and I see her body language, we can believe. We can do something also with wrestling.
Right. We
can do something with the 4x100 relay team. So you can see how careful I am, because Kayode It is what you sow, you reap.
You know, we've always seen that as a curse, but it's a reality of like whatever you sow.
Let there be peace. Let there be peace. You said there cannot be peace. There has to be peace this time.
Until we get it right. Now, can you see? Are we having peace? Can you live things?
Austin, you're in Paris. There's romance there. You have love at least. Something to hold on to. We have to thank you so much, our sports correspondent in Paris, Austin Okonakpan. We wish you the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. All the best to you. Cheers. Bye.
Well, there you have it. Maybe we can take solace in the fact that we have other Nigerians, you know, wearing other countries' jerseys, Bahrain, the US,
we'll
UK.
We'll stick to the ones that are wearing our colors. We're just comrades with the other ones.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, there you have it. That has been the show for today. We'd like to thank you so much for being a part of it. Don't forget, Sunrise Daily is next. We're big on the breaking stories that you need to know about. I'm Kayode Okikiodu.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, your usual company. If they are converging at any point as far as this protest is concerned, trust Channels Television will be there. Thank you for watching. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Bye-bye.